Hi guys, I'm Scott Brown, the developer for the game Worldstone Chronicles, and this is my 30th devlog. Alright guys, in this video I got a lot to talk about, so buckle up and here we go. First off, we got this new zone called Silverbound Mountains. It's a very dangerous zone to be in. It's got lots of high-level enemies and bosses, and deep inside here there is a little bit of a reclusive dwarven city that is kind of acts like a bit of a safe zone. I like the idea that, if you venture deep enough, all of a sudden you can kind of find a bit of respite, maybe save, and that sort of thing. So that's what the idea here is. This new city does introduce a whole bunch of new things, such as recipes, a new character, a bunch of new items, and other things that are very themed around being a dwarf. So you'll probably find some really good crafting recipes. I'd like to do a bit of a fly through here just to show you the scope of these mines. We've got lots of little tunnels and little places to put bad guys. We've got a bridge here which requires some crafting in order to fix it. Lots of rivers separating all these different areas, so you kind of can get yourself a bit lost. And I also like to kind of have them all connected in some fashion or another. We've also got some crumbled walls which require strength or other statistics to pop through. Save pillar as well. The mines also splits up into two. Down one direction leads you over to another save pillar and the dwarven mine city here. If you keep venturing past the mines, you end up in another area deeper in, which has a whole bunch of rock golems. We've built another couple of these crumbled mines here just because I thought it made most sense. Inside them, there's kind of like little hidden areas. We've also got some extremely difficult bad guys here, which they're kind of like these tendrils that pop out of the ground. They're very annoying. They grab you and they root you. Very hard to beat, so there's some good rewards there. If you slip over to the other side, we've also got just some other themed areas. Wasn't really sure what I wanted, so some of them are kind of open to some interpretation later on. Maybe I'll build more bad guys. This side here has quite a bit of undead, so I wanted a bit of a different theme. They're kind of like old humans that were used to run the mines. They're now all dead. I also added these special types of doors, which is kind of like you have to find a switch. The switch can be pretty much wherever I want. In this case, it's on the other side of the path. So as you go down one path, you could find the secret and then have to search for it. So if you do that, it leads you into here, which has some high-level loot and a quest thing that you need to get. So this is a very large zone. Excited to see what people think about it when they explore the whole thing. Now, the next zone I was working on is called Moonstone Holds. If you recall, in my last devlog, I was working on a bunch of giants in a zone called Moonstone Peaks. This basically resides inside Moonstone Peaks. It's very spacious, has lots of big grand columns so that the giants can move around. It's a little different than the mines that we were just talking about, where everything was kind of narrow and that sort of stuff. But this one's got big doors, all sorts of stuff for giants. In this particular area, you got a locked door that is going to host a large giant who's basically the giant's blacksmithing guy. You pick up and grab this key and you'll be able to open the door. I did disable all the enemies just so I can run around right now and just kind of show you the zone, but it's already finished. Lots of bad guys in here, cool loot and that sort of stuff. Moving further along, we find ourselves at a new zone called Silverbound Hollow, which is basically outside of the mines that we were talking about earlier. This one has some of the tall trees from the adjacent zone that I talked about in my previous devlog. So I kind of used some assets from there, and it kind of blended it a bit, so there's not as many trees, but you're starting to see a few of them. Now, I just wanted to show you a little bit of a fly through here. As you can see, we're kind of around that spot there just in the previous one, but I've lined up a whole bunch of these big rock columns along the wall edge. Basically, it's a giant mountain, and I've tried to spice things up. You've got different kind of phantoms. There's also some of these like crab things in here, which if you manage to get through all of them, you'll find yourself with this beholder type enemy at the end, and they drop some pretty good loot. This one splits over, and it does have a couple things that I need to remove. That I don't know why that quest board's there, but I'll get rid of that. But as you venture further along, you'll end up finding the entrance to the mines, and it's also going to have some very difficult rock columns, and one of them happens to be kind of like a throwback for me to an old game called Dragon Warrior, where there was a gold golem. So I added something like that in there. Just I thought it would be neat if there was an enemy out there that dropped a heavy amount of gold. So something that maybe people can routinely farm if they wanted to, but he's in there and he kind of just paces back and forth. He's not a guaranteed mob pop, but I think every 4 hours there's a chance that he will reappear. Moving on to the combat that I wanted to talk about. Just finished making this boss here, and I was really proud of the way the guy looked. He's just got some swagger to him. As I was piecing it together and starting to do some of the battling, felt like there was something missing with my game, and people have addressed some criticisms over the combat being a little bit confusing, just not clear on what it is. I've always had this idea where I liked certain games that had group aspects, and you could control kind of all your players and that sort of stuff. And I was just trying to come up with something that I kind of devised a long time ago. And essentially it works, but I just don't know if it was actually really all that fun. So I went back to the drawing board, kind of looked at some other games that have similar ideas around how these group type action playing games are. And I came up with some cool ideas. And as you can see here, this is the old combat where everyone kind of has predefined spells. Either you set it up as green and it just auto fires, or if it's blue, it goes on the left-hand side as like it kind of looks like a buff bar, but they're actually actions that you can cast, and you don't even have to be controlling the person. And it just fires it. It needs a target and that sort of stuff. So there was some confusion deeply rooted in the blue action sequences. A lot of people don't understand that the action bar isn't kind of like a push to fire. It's more like a push and set and leave it be, I suppose. And there was really no true way of playing a character kind of like people anticipated, like Diablo, where you just push a button and he shoots a fireball or something like that. So I had changed it to be more like that. And now we have a whole bunch of different features on how the combat's run, and I'm going to just go through all those new additions. Now, I just want to go into a little bit of how abilities are set up in this game. I've changed the action bar a little bit. So what I want to do is basically throw all my abilities on my action bar that I end up wanting to use. So in this case, I'm putting all my ranged damage dealing abilities at the start here, and then I kind of throw my buffs at the end. I've also got an area effect root and a staff attack. Now, essentially, I'm going to change these to have different statuses. When I use these use and wait functions, they are essentially telling the AI of my game, which is kind of like how when you're not controlling it, a computer kind of plays your character for you, and this just tells it what to use. If it's set to green, it basically shoots it when it wants to. If it's blue, it doesn't touch it, but then you can actually use it yourself while he's being controlled by the computer, and you can override those commands. So on the left-hand side, you see the bubble, and you see the blue buff there. That's an area effect root. I can just push those at any moment, and it'll fire it instantly. Now let's dive a little deeper here. The controls and movement are exactly the same. The big difference here is that your companions they're basically kind of on their own, based on the settings that you put on your taskbar here. And depending if they're green or blue, if they're green, they basically will be instructed to use those when that companion isn't being controlled. So if you've got a bunch of green setted heals, they'll just start casting heals on characters that need heals and their health is low. If you set them to blue, they show up in this left-hand side action bar, which kind of looks like a buff bar. And all you have to do here is just click on one and it changes your mouse blue, and then you have to choose a target. Now that works for every ability. Some of them you can even ground target if that's an option, and then you just click on the ground. But essentially it's a point and shoot type ability pool, And it works for anybody. You don't have to be controlling them. The idea behind it is to perhaps you're controlling somebody else and you need like a pinch heal real quick. You can just click on one of those abilities. It calls that character and sets that ability on the next command. Now, once that ability is over with, you can either set another one up in the blue section, or they can just go back to doing whatever that is that they are instructed to do with all their green abilities. Now, when you're controlling a character, it is quite different on how the controls work. You do have to have targets ahead of time to start pushing, and now any character in your team can be individually controlled. I'm controlling this mage here, and I'm just starting to shoot some arcane blasts and arcane explosion on this enemy here. It is a little different to set up and use. You have to right-click your enemy or your companions if you want to apply abilities to them. And in this case, I've right-clicked that giant and I was shooting some of these spells on him. And you can either use your mouse on the bottom left action bar, or you can use the numerical pad and just push the buttons they represent. And that's very similar to how an MMO would play. So it's quite different now in that regards. I think people are going to find it a lot easier, especially when they first play the game. A lot of people were playing it kind of like that. So now that they have that control, they should be, hopefully, enjoying it. Well, that's all I have right now. I really wanted to keep this one short because I'm looking for some feedback on the new combat design. I'm hoping that some people will play the demo, which is up right now. If you go and check out my Steam page, you'll see that the demo is fully updated with this new combat system. I didn't really announce it anywhere yet. I wanted to do this devlog first and then maybe get a good chunk of feedback. I'm hoping that some people had played the old design and have perhaps something to compare to. Even some of the folks that either couldn't figure out how to heal or struggled in some fashion with that old design, give it another try and see if that improves. I did enjoy the old combat system, but I can understand where it fell short. It was a bit confusing, especially for folks who never played the game before or that style of RPG. It just may be a little bit too brand new. But this one incorporates a lot of new mainstream styles and controls for these kinds of games. I don't really think there's a ton of group-based RPGs out there that have a more fluid, that isn't a turn-based kind of game. So I do feel like this is still a very unique game. I've added my own twist with the blue abilities and the green abilities. It's kind of like a tactical system. So I still think that it's quite unique in my own way, and I didn't want to completely toss away some of the stuff that I did in my previous combat design. Anyways, I'm quite proud of everything right now in terms of how this combat's turned out. I really hope that you guys enjoy it. Please use the F11 key in the game to submit any of your feedback, and also let me know in the comments below on what you think. It really does help push my videos, which seemingly don't really get very far anymore on YouTube, but any little ounce of help you can throw my way, a like and a comment would be huge. Anywho, that's it for now. Peace out, guys. Thanks.